Welcome to another episode of our special series On the Ground, where we talk to business owners, talk to business leaders, right, to understand the insights and the impact on the US trade tariffs on the rest of the world. Today, we have a very special guest, Vernon Lim. He is the founder of a business community called Oasis, right, which brings businesses together for collaboration and business matching opportunities. So he is also the advisor of MNC brands. And today we want to understand his insights and hear more from his perspective on how SMEs can react and pivot in difficult times like this. So Vernon, would you like to give a short introduction of yourself?
Yeah, hi, Tammy and Adeline. Thanks for the invitation to be featured here. My name is Vernon. I have been in the marketing and branding industry for almost a decade. Throughout this time, we have served clients from a one-man entrepreneur all the way to companies that are multinational in nature, have revenues in the hundreds of millions across a variety of industries. So we essentially help them with their growth strategies, growth opportunities, structurally and in business sense. We are in a privileged position to hear about the frustrations of businesses, especially those who are located here in Singapore and those with regional presence. I'm also the founder of a business community called Oasis. We've been operating for a few years since after COVID, where we bring businesses together regularly to network, to meet each other, to explore collaboration, and to solve business challenges. So, yeah, thank you for having me.
Right. So recently, of course, we have all been hearing in the news about the US trade tariffs. And of course, since then there has been a pause. But that comes into, of course, the macro side of the economy. There's a lot of changes. But what we really wanted to find out was more on how it is impacting SMEs at the ground level. Right. So far, we've heard a lot on the macro level from all the different leaders and all the different government positions, right? But what is your take and how has it been impacting SMEs, particularly on the ground?
Yeah, thanks, Adeline. Fundamentally, first, we have to appreciate the nature of this category of businesses and enterprises called SMEs. They are wide, varied, of different industries, different appetites, different aspirations. Looking at it very broadly, you have to understand that it's a very broad base, firstly, and they have different interests, different agendas, and different objectives. However, they are operated by human beings. So unlike a corporation the corporations are also operated by human beings, but they have a lot more processes and structures and bureaucracy and red tape. SMEs are fundamentally very, very small decision-making suite, right? Which can be either the business owner, a small handful of business partners, or sometimes, many times, husband and wife teams. So when you take that into consideration, what happens when the global superpowers stop playing according to the rules? If you frame it that way, the thinking process therefore is the assumptions that we used to have when we do business are now compromised. They are now subject to review. Well, it's no different than saying that if you are two teenage children and your parents have now decided to, get a divorce, for example, how does it affect you if you're a teenage kid? Well, the answer is that you stop playing by the rules, right? You don't come back for dinner. You can choose to come back for dinner or not come back for dinner. You will think that whenever your dad talks to you, he actually has an agenda, or your mom talks to you, he has a different agenda. So if you take it from a human psychology perspective, the answer is, the one of the ground feel is because the rules that we have been playing for until now has changed. The question is, do we then still play by the rules? Or do we start to shift our alliances and our decision-making processes will change? Very realistically, one of my clients was preparing to list their company in April, actually in about 10 days. They have obviously decided to put that on a hold and watch and see because capital markets are up in a mess. This company is about single digit million. So I wouldn't say they're very, very large, but they already decided to put their growth plans on a hold. This is first. And when we use very clinical terms like put growth plans on a hold, pivot, consolidate, I think these are very clinical and very, very cold words. What it means is that jobs stop, hiring stop, promotions stop, performance reviews start being reviewed differently, contracts stop. Yeah, that's what it really means when people say, "Oh, we are going to pivot," or we are going to put things on hold. What it really means is that contracts stop moving, right? So when big contracts stop moving, small contracts also stop moving. Now, does it mean they don't have money? My client, for example, who might be getting ready to spend 300,000 on a particular project 4 months ago that we have been nurturing for 6 months. 4 months ago, they were allocating the budget and they were ready to, basically pull the trigger. And now they decided to take a wait and see approach. So my question is, did their 300,000 disappear from their bank account? Did the money disappear? No, it's still there, right? But are they going ahead with their ambitious growth plans? The answer is no. And what about the rest of the supply chain? That's just one example of one enterprise. There are thousands of enterprises with tens of thousands of projects and initiatives and ideas, and there are maybe hundreds of thousands of proposals and conversations, nurturing conversations, all happening, and all of them, almost all, I would say, I guess the eggs still have to be ordered, but almost all of them, all are now put on review, put on pause. So bonuses start to get affected, hiring decisions start to get affected, outsourcing decisions all get to affected. So that's what it really means on the ground, right? When we use such clinical terms at the top, at the macro level.
Those are, I think, very informative. Personally, for your side, right, as a brand strategist, do you see that the budgets are held back or projects are stopped at this moment? Do you experience it yourself as well?
I would say unanimously everything is up for review, meaning whatever decisions that were made before the start of April, I would say almost all the decisions, all have to be reviewed. Nothing is like, oh, you said you're going to do what you never do. Oh, I thought you said you're going to go ahead. Why you don't go ahead? I mean, I'm not going to call my client and say, hey, you say you're going to proceed with this thing. Why don't you do it now? I'm not going to do that because I know why. Right? If I ask, are we still proceedings? Oh, but then we need to review it internally. We get back to you. And they're not trying to be funny, They really don't know whether they want to proceed because they don't know whether or not the marketing or growth strategy the assumptions that they made when they developed these strategies does those assumptions still make sense? So they have to review the assumptions and then they go back to the strategy, back to the drawing board basically. And for bigger contracts, especially those in the hundreds of thousands, those contracts take very long to nurture and to mature. So it's all back to the pupa stage basically.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think it's very risk adverse to take that stance where, something global is happening and then we wait and see, right? But what do we do while we wait and see? Are we going to, what are we trying to see from here? What is your perspective on that?
Yeah. So it is not all doom and gloom for every single SME owner, of course, right? We can talk about companies that are a little bit more nimble and more sophisticated. So what do companies do? First, they take stock of their resources, firstly. They figure out how much runway and breathing, how much air they have, which is their runway to go. And they start to be very innovative and very creative about the way they choose to do their business. So I give you a simple example. There is a upstick of events and interactions between the trade partners of SMEs, straight up. I to say, in the past, you wouldn't bother talking to this guy because you got bigger fish to fry. And now they will talk to you, whatever what fish you are, they'll talk to you because we are on a information gathering stage now. So as much information and data they can collect, they will. So basically more conversations are happening. But what doesn't change is the time. That means we are supposed to do something today. Now it got delayed by 6 months or however long it takes for us to review. Then we pivot, we decided to do some engagement and collect information, and it'll take another couple of months. Now, this does not change. That means what is unanimous and same is that everything gets delayed. Now, for enterprises and entrepreneurs, when everything gets delayed, what it means is that the running cost continues. Right? So if everybody's expecting, let's say for example, I'm expecting this contract to come in at 300,000. I'm expecting this cash flow to be coming in. I made plans, right? And now this 300,000 isn't coming in, for example. So because they are reviewing, and legitimately so, they're not trying to be funny, they're really reviewing. Then I now need to make my decision differently because I don't know when this big injection of revenue is coming in. Right, so I will make my own decisions and I will start becoming more conservative because I'm trying to conserve my capital because I don't know how long this winter is going to last, and rightly so. Again, nobody bought, but of course I'm not going to sit on my hand and just suck thumb and just wondering what's up. We will start doing information gathering, but that still take time. And so basically what you will see is you will see a reduction in growth initiator strategies that are very capital intensive. You will see an uptake in a lot of low risk, easy to deploy strategies. That's why a lot of people coming for my events, right? Because if Vernon is organizing a lot of networking events, meet more people, they are willing to come and they are very happy to come. And formerly they will say, oh, I got to meet clients. Why should I go for networking event to meet more industry players? Now they will because they are looking for opportunities, right? And everybody is trying to figure out whose client has agreed to proceed, right? And we should then hang out with this guy and help his client because his client has agreed to proceed. So that if my client proceeds later on, then I will get you involved because you invited me on the earlier boat, so to speak. So this is on the ground, right? These are what's really happening. At least that's what I see from my interactions with my community.
So I have a question, right? So some of the business owners that we have in our circle, their dealings are a bit more domestic per se, right? Their clients are more domestic. And so what I have heard is their point of view is more of, oh, I think it's not going to impact me directly, but it's gonna be just likely a slowdown in the economy, and that will then impact me. Do you think that is the right approach or that's the right thinking to take in this case?
Yeah. Firstly, again, we have to understand the world that we are in. Is there really such a thing as a domestic market in Singapore? That's the question. Is it domestic structurally, or does it appear domestic because of how short-sighted or long-sighted you are? If we go to have dinner at let's say we go for a Michelin star dinner tonight, I go for a Michelin star dinner with my wife. Is it a domestic market? I'm local, so I go with my wife for a Michelin star dinner tonight. Is it domestic? If I decide to go and book a hotel staycation with my wife this weekend, because it's a long weekend, is it domestic? I'm local, right? So I'm going to do domestic, right? But my clients are the one that's giving me the confidence to make all these expenses. But my clients are regional. So if they decide to put a pause on everything, I decide not to go for my Michelin star tonight, decide not to go for my sake, my Ichiban sushi or whatever tonight, or my stay in the Raffles Hotel tonight. Is it domestic, really? Yeah, so even just because a Singaporean is paying for it doesn't mean it's the domestic market, right? Because we are a very well connected country, a lot of capital flows in, right? And the capital get redistributed, and then we refer to this market as domestic market. Yeah, so
You have a very interesting perspective about domestic market because typically people will think of it as a geographic boundary where Singaporeans means domestic, but the way you see it is a value chain, right? So you're saying because most of our big jobs in Singapore are given to MNCs and regional businesses, then the money is flowing in. Therefore, when we are spending on the ground, right, are we actually earning from a domestic to spend, right? So I think that is quite a new perspective. Can you elaborate a bit more about it?
yeah, so the way I look at markets, I don't look at it domestic or regional per se, right? Being a melting pot and such a well-connected country like Singapore. I mean, if you are in a village in the top of the Himalayas or so for example, yeah, I would say that it's real domestic, right? Because your neighbor is giving you a goat and you give him a chicken or something like that. Yeah, sure, right? And then the food comes from the ground, the sun shines the vegetables, and the food comes out. You feed the chicken. Yeah, sure. I think it's domestic, right? Or at least it's localized. The entire economy and value chain is localized. But is this the case here in Singapore? Yeah, I might serve SME clients. So one of my SME clients is a security company. They are local, owned by Mr. Tan. You know, have a outfit, 9 employees, sell CCTVs and whatever, right? Here in Singapore, local, right? Absolutely local. So if he gives me a contract to do rebranding for his company for $50,000, right, domestic, right? But his clients are not Singaporean-based business, right? His clients are regional HQ setting up, companies having the confidence to set up more outlets here in Singapore, opening up more offices. This money flowing from outside of Singapore. Then it ends up into a bank account somewhere, some budget somewhere. It goes into some renovation projects, goes into him, right? And then he then has a budget. He decides to engage me for branding or whatever services. Do we call it domestic? Well, yes, yes. But I look at it as the flow of capital, right? So capital is flowing outside of Singapore to into Singapore, and it spins inside Singapore. But if you just put a glass dome on top of Singapore and just say whatever you spend here, you know, is domestic, I think it's not the right way to view Singapore. I mean, we literally cannot even buy eggs if we're not connected to the rest of the global supply chain. So I don't view it that way. So if you tell me if there's something going on in the world, it affects the confidence of a lot of big players. Big players start playing defense and they start shoring up their resources, and they go for very risk managed and resource preservating strategies. It will cause a cardiac arrest, basically. So it will cause us, we are like on the tip of the finger, you know, we're not having a cardiac arrest of the chest, but the chest has a cardiac arrest, but then your finger's going to turn blue too, right? Because no blood's reaching the finger. So we, as the smaller enterprises, we are at like the fingers, the end of the fingers, right? But the heart matters. Even though the heart is very far away from your finger, it kind of matters. Yeah.
I think that's a great analogy to think that SMEs, for us, we are quite small and therefore we are maybe the second tier or third tier effect of what's happening around the world. But that also gives me a reflection point, right? Because when we do our business, then naturally we will think that, oh, okay, I'm a Singapore business, means I serve Singapore market. It seems like my business is surviving quite well. But that is an illusion, right? Based on analogy. Because what we don't see and what we won't have the perception of is we're actually playing on the landing point of a global market. And because of that, we are always affected. And if we stay still and we do not look at what's happening around the world, then sooner or later our fingers will turn blue and our businesses will die.
Yeah, I was just chatting with one of my community members recently. So he was also asking me about how's my industry and stuff like that, and we were talking about it. So just imagine you sell umbrellas, right? Literally, you sell umbrellas, and you refer to yourself as the umbrella selling market or the umbrella industry. Do you think that rain matters in your sale of umbrellas? It matters, right? Because there is rain, then people want to buy umbrellas and so on and so forth. But if you just ignore rain, you just don't want to entertain the idea of rain, and you just assume every day is going to rain, so therefore umbrella is a great business, right? And then the rain, and somebody's giving you a forecast that the rain is going to stop and there's going to be a drought, then within the umbrella people, they start discussing about how to sell more umbrellas and shall we find more customers for umbrella. I think this is not a useful conversation, because fundamentally the flow of capital, in this case literally rain, the flow of capital is going to be stopped. So for you to create value with your umbrella selling company, you need to think of other things, right? Should you then use your shop rental that is selling umbrellas? Should you start selling sunglasses, right? Should you start selling bottled water? Should you start learning about how to sell water bottles? Should you start finding suppliers for water bottle? You need to start thinking outside your umbrella here, but you need to look at what you have. What you have is that you have a shopfront location, well located near MRT. You have employees. You have people who are good salespeople. You have a good inventory system. You got a good bank account, finance management system, or whatever. So these are what is telling you, these are the resources that you have, right? So you need to look at your resources and develop strategies. If you have a view that the rain is going to stop coming, because you're so used to rain, you sell umbrellas every day, keep by selling it, right? That's what I mean. What is a danger is that the SMEs or the smaller enterprises just say, I'm in the umbrella selling business, don't talk to me about anything else, right? Just get me cheaper umbrellas or better quality, I'm good. And then you're in trouble. And you're in big trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's something that I'm seeing or hearing as well, because there is this sense as well that, there is no way for me as a smaller business to affect what's going on out there. So we're going to have to see the ripple effect. But what you're saying is we really have to examine the fundamentals of what we have and the value that we provide and position ourselves accordingly then in this economy right now, especially when it's changing so fast.
I know, absolutely. So sometimes we have some kind of envy syndrome, right? We are smaller companies. Look at all these big companies. They have so much money and they have so much resources, and we're such a small company. We are going to be wiped out, or something like that. That's because we don't spend enough time with the bigger companies. So I have served clients that they have quite big revenue. And I have been in boardroom meetings, right, where we literally sit with people who are incredibly wealthy, and they have said to me, Vernon, we have limited resources. I mean, you might laugh because you might not have that you might not have been in that kind of environment where even a person who quote unquote have unlimited money would say and can hire anybody and can have a team as big as he wants, would say that we have limited resources, we need to be very careful about how we spend them. It tells you something, doesn't it? Right? It tells you that even if you have all the resources, well, you will still have limited time. You will still need to take stock of your resources regularly so you know how to deploy them. Right? We don't see their high, huge overheads because we only see their fancy buildings, right? We don't realize that the building costs money to maintain. Okay? They have huge payroll. Their payroll can be like $40 million, their payroll. So you don't see the huge payroll. You don't see the huge maintenance cost for their infrastructure. So actually, we as nimble people, I would even hilariously argue that most of our profit margins are very large compared to the bigger companies. Our profit margin can be 45%. Which very large company you think can tell people that they have a gross profit of 45%? No, they don't have this kind of margin, right? So we are not sensitive to this because we spend time with only people like ourselves, right? In terms of how our balance sheet looks like, how our P&L looks like. But if you see P&Ls of larger companies, and by larger I mean they hundreds of millions of dollars, right, you will have a really different perspective. I mean, it's not so enviable in that position. So what can we do when we look at ourselves? Number one, Sun Tzu already covered this. You have to know yourself, which is to know your resources first. Know what you're good for, know what you have, know that you have a good, for example, good relationship with certain clients, right? Just know what you have. Employees with certain skill sets, certain culture, certain working dynamics, certain standards of execution. Know what you have, know your strength. Then you must know your enemy, right? In this case, the market or clients or whatever, or your competitors, know them. So, and then you will be able to execute good winning strategies. So, for example, have you considered collaborating with your clients? Example, yes, they can be your clients today, but you know, when the tide goes out, it goes out on everybody. The challenges that we are facing, our clients face them too. They are subject to the same, you know, like when the sun rises, it rises on the good and the bad. And when the sun sets, it sets on the good and the bad. So our clients go through the same uncertainty as us. Can we collaborate with our clients? Can we have a more meaningful and sophisticated relationship with our clients? Can we share risk and reward with our clients? So mindset change, right? So first one. The second point is that we have to understand what is the nature of our business, right? Is your business really about selling umbrellas, or is it really about helping people get home, right? So what really are we selling? So you have to know. And when you know what you're really selling and what business you're really in, you know what resources you have, and you know the market, your competitor and your clients and their fears and concerns, I think you're in a great position to create value.
Well, you have mentioned a lot of things that I want to unpack. So basically, to summarize, you talk about how having limit is a problem of any company of any sizes. You can be a billionaire, but yet you also have limits. So it's really about working with your resources to see how you can deploy it and pivot in these difficult times. Now, also seeing your clients not just as your paymaster, but maybe coming out of a project together where both sides wins and you have some sort of sharing risk relationship so that both sides are able to create a new value proposition or something innovative in the market. Right? And lastly, you also talk about 孙子兵法. I thought that was quite brilliant to go back to our roots, our learning, and to see how we can know thyself, know enemies, right, and deploy accordingly. Yeah, so I think these are really great points.